සුපිරි එලියක් වෙළඳ පොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 160යි.
Tonight, no chance. The opposition's no confidence motion filed in Parliament against the Minister of Energy, defeated by a 91 vote majority. It does the job. Researchers at the Sri Jayewardenepura University clocks the Sinopharm vaccine as 95% effective in producing antibodies.
Majority of the individuals develop very robust antibody responses against SARS-CoV-2 virus. Especially with beta and delta variant, the Sinopharm vaccine produce very good neutralizing antibodies.
No conclusion. Discussions between the Education Minister and teachers' unions end in continuation of the island-wide strike. No truth. The Treasury hits back at ratings agency Moodys for creating unwarranted uncertainty on Sri Lanka's financial position. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 20th of July, 2021.
ඒ කියන්නේ ලයිෆ් බෝයි අවස්ථා 10කදී ලෙඩ රෝග 10කට හේතු වන වෛරස් ඇතුළු විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරනවා කියලා.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanaka. Now then, the no confidence motion that was filed against Minister of Energy Uday Gammanpila alleging mismanagement of the country's fuel pricing situation and the financial situation at the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation was taken up for a vote following a heated debate in Parliament today. The subsequent vote concluded with the motion being defeated by a majority of 91 votes as 61 parliamentarians voted in favour and 152 voted against it.
The no confidence motion moved against Honorable Uday Gammanpila is moved for the reason that for several different aspects of the management of his ministry, he has perhaps mismanaged the affairs of the ministry for these reasons. Now, I would like to deal just with one aspect of it. Now, we say in our motion, and whereas he has not fulfilled the pledge given to use the profit earned by the government when prices were falling to rescue the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation from its indebtedness to state banks. Now this is for this reason. Usually the practice in the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is that when they open a letter of credit, they have to retire the letter of credit when they receive the goods. But then the Petroleum Corporation has been following a practice of taking on DP terms for 90 days, for 180 days, and have been monthly, their commitment has been in the range of about 200 to 215 or 220 million dollars. So they collect weekly, monthly, and settle the money to the commercial banks, the state banks, so that they retire the letter of credit, which for the last 1.5 years, having had a massive profit, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has failed to retire the bills to the state banks, thereby causing a serious run on the state banks' deposits. This treasury management in the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is dragging the country into a serious crisis.
දැන් මිල සූත්‍රයේ තිබුණා නම් අද කීයද තෙල්වල මිල කියලා ඔබතුමාලම කියන්න. එදා කිව්වා නෑ නෑ ඒක තිබුණා නම් ඔහම දැනෙන්නේ නෑ කියලා. දැන් මම අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ගිහිල්ලා අමාත්‍යවරයා විදියට බාර ගන්නකොට කංජතෙල් නීතිගස්සාවේ ඒ වර්ෂයේ ඍණ මට්ටමට වැටලා දුන්නේ පාඩුව තිබුණා බිලියන 339ක් තිබුණා. ඒ වෙලාව ඉඳපු අපේ පාලන අධිකාරිය සියලු දෙනා එකතු වෙලා යම් යම් සැලසුම් සකස් කළා මේක මිලියන 2800ක ලාභයක් දක්වා පරිවර්තනය කරන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබුණා. ඒ වෙලාවේ ලෝක වෙළඳපොලේ ඉන්ධන මිල අඩු වුණා ඒක ඇත්ත. දැන් මෙතන චෝදනා කරා ඉන්ධන නිකන් ගන්න තිබුණා කියලා. හැබැයි නිකන් ගන්න තිබුණා නම් මුළු ලෝකෙම තිබුණු තත්ත්වයක් ඒක. අපේ රටේ විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඇත්ත. ඉන්ධන මිල අඩු වුණා. අපිට ඒක ගන්න බැරි වුණේ. අපිට අරගෙන මේක ගබඩා කරන්න තැනක් තිබුණේ නෑ. ඉන්ධන ගබඩා කරන්න අපේ ඉන්ධන ටැංකි ටික ඒ වෙනකොට ඉන්දියාවට දීලා ඉවරයි.
ලෝක වෙළඳ පොලේ ඉන්ධන මිල ඉහළ යනකොට අපි මිල වැඩි කරනවා නම් ආණ්ඩුව මොකටද කියලා ඒ කාලේ මොවුන් ප්‍රශ්න කරා. අපේ ආණ්ඩුව කාලේ නිර්දේශපාලන මිල සූත්‍රයක් ගෙනාවම ඒකට හිනහ වුණා. අපි නම් මෙවැනි දුෂ්ට වැඩවලට ඉඩ තියන්නේ නැහැ කියලා වුන් කිව්වා. මහා බලාපොරොත්තු ගොන්නක් එක්ක තමයි 69 ලක්ෂයක් ජනතාව ජනාධිපතිවරයාත් රජයත් පත් කරගත්තේ. නමුත් අද සභාපතිතුමනි අවුරුදු එකහමාරකින් පස්සේ මුළු රටම අගාධයට වැටිලා. සංවර්ධනයේ කෙසේ වෙතත් අඩු ගානේ මිනිසුන්ට තුන් වේල කන්න නැහැ කියලා අලුතෙන් පත් කරපු මුදල් ඇමතිතුමා කිව්වා. අපේ අසල්වාසී රටවල් ශීඝ්‍රයෙන් දියුණු වෙනවා. දැන් බලන්න බංග්ලාදේශයෙන් අපේ රටට ණය දෙන්න පොරොන්දු වෙලා තියෙනවා.
ලෝකෙම ඉතාම අපහසු කාල සීමාවක් පසු කරන කාලවකවානුවක අපිට අකමැත්තෙන් වුණත් අපේ රාජ්‍යයට ඉන්ධන මිල වැඩි කරන්න සිදු වුණා. ඒක සාමූහික තීන්දුවක් හැටියට ගත්තු කාරණයක්. ඒ නිසා ඒක කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය සාපේ රාජ්‍ය ඒ තීන්දුව අරගත්තේ ඒ කටයුත්ත නොකර බැරි කාරණයක් නිසා බව අපි තාම වගකීමෙන් සඳහන් කරනවා. ඔබතුමාලා දන්නවා මේ කොරෝනා ව්‍යසනයේ මර්ධනයට විතරක් අපි රුපියල් බිලියන 285ක මුදලක් වියදම් කළ එක දැවැන්ත මුදලක්. අපි බලා එහෙම වියදම් කරන ගමන් මේ රටේ ආර්ථිකය අහිමි වෙච්ච පවුල් ලක්ෂ 50කට වඩා වැඩි ගණනකට අපි අවස්ථා තුනකදී සහන ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා.
කඤ්ඤ තෙල් ආනයනයේ සමස්ත ආනයනයෙන් 120කට 25කට වක් කියනවා. මේක පාලනය කරගන්නේ නැතුව පුංචි පුංචි වෙනත් භාණ්ඩ සීමා කරලා මේ විනිමය ප්‍රශ්න අර්බුදය විසඳගන්න බෑ. ඒ නිසා අපිට දැන් අවුරුද්දකට ඩොලර් බිලියන 3කුත් 5කුත් අතර ගාණක් තෙල් ආනයනය කරන්න යනවා. මාසෙකට යනවා ඩොලර් මිලියන 300ක් 350ක් වගේ ගාණක්. මේ මිල වැඩි කිරීමේ අරමුණ ලාභ පාඩු පියව ගැනීමට වඩා විදේශ විනිමය ඉතිරි කර ගැනීමට තෙල් අර පිරිමැස්මෙන් භාවිතා කිරීමට ජනතාව පොළඹවා ගැනීමටයි කියන කාරණය මම දිගින් දිගටම කිව්වේ මේ සඳහා. ඒ වගේම ජීවන වියදම වැඩිවීම ගැන හැමෝම කතා කරා. ජීවන වියදම් කමිටුව මේ ගැන අවධානය යොමු කරා. අපි බැලුවා දිගින් දිගටම මේ ප්‍රමාණයෙන් තෙල් අරන් ආවොත් ඩොලරය අගේ ඉහළ යනවා. 2015 රුපියල් 131 වෙච්ච ඩොලරය දැන් රුපියල් 200 පැනලා 153කින් අව ප්‍රමාණය වෙලා. අපි ඊළඟට බැලුවා ඉන්ධන මිල වැඩි කිරීමෙන් ඇති වෙන උද්දමනයේද ඩොලරයේ මිල ඉහළ යාමෙන් ඇති වෙන උද්දමනයේද වඩා ජනතාවට බලපාන්නේ. අපට පෙනුණා ඩොලරයේ අගේ ඉහළ යෑමයි නරක තත්ත්වයක් ඇති කරන්න කියලා. ඒ නිසා අර 153කින් අවප්‍රමාණය වෙච්ච ඩොලරය පාලනය කරගන්න 106කින් ඩීසල් මිල ඉහළ දාන්න ආණ්ඩුව තීන්දුවක් ගත්තා.
Following the end of the heated debate, the no confidence motion brought against Minister of Energy Uday Gammanpila by the opposition was then taken up for a vote and subsequently defeated by a majority of 91 votes. A total of 61 MPs voted in favour of the motion, while 152 parliamentarians voted against it. Members of the Samagi Jana Balavegya, the Tamil National Alliance and the Janata Vimukti Peramuna voted in favour, while all members of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party voted against. Following this, parliamentary sessions were then adjourned until the 3rd of August.
අඩසිය වසකට වැඩි ජනතා විශ්වාසය නව සංයෝගයකින් රයිනෝ රෝෆිං සහ සීලිං ෂීට්.
A study conducted by the Allergy, Immunology and Cell Biology Unit of the Sri Jawahardanapura University has found that 95% of people who received the Sinopharm jab have successfully developed antibodies against COVID-19. Director of the department, Dr. Chandima Jeevandara, revealed that the study also showed that the vaccine remains effective against the World Health Organization's variants of concern, such as the Delta and Alpha. The China-made COVID vaccine, Sinopharm, is the widely used vaccine brand in Sri Lanka's inoculation drive against the novel coronavirus. The country has so far received 7.1 million Sinopharm doses, with 1.1 million doses being a donation from China, while the others were purchased by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation. As of last evening, 4,635,090 Sinopharm shots had been administered as part of the first dose rollout, while 1,297,337 from that figure are given both shots from the Sinopharm jab. Given the major role the Sinopharm vaccine plays in Sri Lanka's inoculation drive, the Allergy, Immunology and Cell Biology Unit at the University of Sri Jawahardanapura had recently conducted a study to ascertain the vaccine's efficacy in the island. The outcome of the study is quite positive.
We have recruited 323 individuals from the community before the vaccination of the Sinopharm vaccine, and we have followed them up for 6 weeks to identify the development of immune response among these individuals. We took a blood sample at the beginning before the vaccination, and we took another blood sample at 4 weeks before the second jab, and we took another sample after 6 weeks. We have detected that majority of the individuals develop very robust antibody responses. More than 95% of them develop antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 virus. And if you take a age breakdown, especially the younger adults, 98.9% had developed antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 virus among people between 21 years to 39 years. Above 60-year group also, they had a very good antibody response, even though it's not as high as the younger ones. Still, the antibody response was about 93.3, which is very good. In overall, the efficacy was more than 95% in producing the antibodies.
Dr. Jeevandara also noted that the antibody levels generated by the Sinopharm jab against 2 particular COVID variants of concern, including Delta, is very good.
We further expanded our research and compared these 323 individuals with another 36 individuals who had the natural infection. After 6 weeks of the natural infection, we compared their antibody levels and the T-cell responses with the group who received the vaccine, and we found that both groups has very good antibodies and T-cell and B-cell responses, and they are even comparable with each other. We investigated the antibody responses against different variants, and we found that especially with Beta and Delta variant, though that is South African and Indian variant, the Sinopharm vaccine produced very good neutralizing antibodies, and it is even comparable with the natural infection.
Meanwhile, the Pfizer vaccine is also a part of the island's inoculation drive, and by last evening, 49,081 people had been administered with the first dose of the jab. As for the use of the Moderna vaccine, 107,787 persons had been administered with the jab. The second dose rollouts of both Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are yet to begin. In the meantime, 159,081 people have obtained the first dose of the Sputnik vaccine, while 14,464 are fully immunized with both doses. The AstraZeneca vaccine, with which Sri Lanka launched its vaccination drive, had been given to 925,242 people in total as of last evening. From that figure, 385,885 people are given both doses and are fully vaccinated. From the country's target population of 11.3 million, the epidemiology unit says that 5,876,281 people have been immunized with the first dose of any COVID vaccine by last evening. 1,697,686 of them, however, have received both doses. Those numbers also include 215,641 vaccinations conducted yesterday alone. As for today, the jab was rolled out in 16 districts across 187 vaccination centres operated by the Triforces and health authorities. Though the inoculation process is gathering momentum, health experts say that the country is still not out of the woods. They urge precaution since time is required to build antibodies, even after vaccination against the novel coronavirus.
As it appears now, the number of cases, particularly at the National Hospital and even in other government hospitals, are steadily increasing, and it appears that we are losing the control that we had achieved by implementing travel restrictions. Vaccination is the most important item that is there at present for us to control or to mitigate this outbreak, but it would not give adequate protection over next 2 months. Only about 8% of Sri Lankans at present have received the full vaccination. And also, even if you are vaccinated, if you have received a single dose, it takes about another 6 weeks for you to develop the immunity the vaccination would provide. It is not possible for us to 100% predict the effect of vaccines against the new variants that may appear in a phase that the infection is spreading fast. It's important that people understand that at this point of time, when the number of cases are rising, the vaccination per se would not give us 100% protection.
Now, in more pandemic-related news, Sri Lanka Medical Association urges people aged over 60 years to adhere to necessary precautionary measures even after getting vaccinated, as a high risk still prevails. Meanwhile, the SLMA also responded to criticism levelled against the reduction in the daily number of PCR tests, saying that the government has been adhering to a new mechanism that excludes exit PCR tests done on COVID-19 infected patients. During the course of yesterday, 1,487 COVID-19 infections, including 23 imported cases, were confirmed in Sri Lanka. The Kalutara district accounted for the highest number of infections with 217 new cases. Meanwhile, 213 fresh infections came from Galle, 164 from Colombo, 126 from Badulla and 102 from Gampaha. The remaining 20 districts accounted for 642 new infections. There were also 43 COVID-related deaths yesterday as well. The Sri Lanka Medical Association, meanwhile, expressed concern that there are more COVID-infected persons in the community than what the official numbers suggest.
There are many places that would be high risk to create another cluster of COVID-19 infections, such as weddings, religious places, religious cultural activities, cinema, public transport, musical shows, restaurants, bars, etc. If there is an environment, enclosed environment with air conditions on, those places could be at very high risk of spreading the disease. When we get about 50 deaths per day, one could calculate at 2% death rate in COVID infection, 10,000 infected people in our community. Our impression is the number infected is much more. As such, it's important that we improve the care given for these patients. To reduce deaths, the patients have to understand that they should reach hospitals early, they should seek medical advice early, and the facilities in hospitals have to be expanded, and there has to be facilities for asymptomatic patients to be managed at home, so that you leave room for more seriously ill patients to have proper care from hospital setting.
Meanwhile, there is criticism over the number of daily PCR tests falling drastically in the recent days. Yesterday, 12,039 PCR tests were conducted. From the 21st of June to the 28th of June, however, the daily PCR tests remained within 18,000 to 20,000 range. From then until the 5th of this month, the daily number of tests fell between 15,000 to 18,000. From then on until last evening, the daily PCR tests number ranged between 10,000 to 15,000. Though the numbers have dropped, there looks to be something more scientific behind it.
In the recent past, they have changed the indications, the reasons or the indications that is needed for PCRs. Previously, when we see the daily data, about 80% of PCRs were what we call exit PCRs, PCRs of people who were leaving the quarantine centers or hospitals. But now what they have done is many of those are replaced with the rapid antigen test, and PCRs are done. Now when you say that 13,000 PCRs, those PCRs are the PCRs of patients who appear to hospitals as well as the PCRs done in hospitals. So the information that you could gather out of that data is little different to what we used to have in the past. And also now they have distributed these PCRs among districts as well as among the places, I mean say for hospitals and likewise. So I think that if necessary, that we could increase the number of PCRs, but then as we go by the proportion, I think that now it gives a better reliable information, though it does not give accurate, precise information. I mean, it gives you information with regard to trend more reliable than previously. There is a ceiling that any government could do. So I think that what is most important is to decide the levers in a most sensible and the most profitable manner.
In the meantime, people above the age of 60 and those suffering from chronic health conditions are urged to exercise maximum caution even after vaccination.
We have seen up to now the people who have succumbed to the disease, about 84% have been above the age of 60 years. And out of that, 54.9% have been diabetics. 51% of the patients have been hypertensives, and others with strokes, ischemic heart disease, and other chronic conditions are also in that list. So if you take that category of people, you have to look after yourself and avoid places where there is a high risk of transmission. Just getting the vaccine also won't do. You must give your body to mount an immune response, which will take about 2 to 3 weeks, and in a patient with comorbidities, it might take a longer period even, because some people are slightly immune compromised, people with chronic kidney diseases. So you need to give some time to get the full protection. Until that time, please control your disease conditions, whatever that may be. People who have diabetes, try to keep your sugars as low as possible. But we know that when you have sugars above 180, the risk of dying from the disease and getting complications goes up to about 10 to 11%. And if your sugars are around 100 to 120 range, your risk comes down to 2%. So this is a risk reduction that you can do it yourself.
As for today, 1,062 new COVID infections were confirmed, taking the number of active cases in the island to 20,826. On the COVID-19 recoveries front, there were 980 today, taking the overall tally to 262,828. A further 449 fresh COVID cases have been confirmed in the island today, taking today's caseload to 1,511. See you shortly.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the Cabinet has given the go-ahead to price the controversial 18-litre domestic gas cylinder introduced to the market by Litrogas to be sold at 1,150 rupees, which is 245 rupees cheaper than its original price. There was public outcry over the new product's price when it was first brought to the market, as it turned out to be 3 kilograms lighter than the conventional 12.5 kilogram cylinder, with a minimal price difference. Though gas companies relentlessly called for a price hike in the recent past, the government did not heed. And in April, the Litrogas Lanka Limited introduced a new 18-litre LPG cylinder to the market. It was 3 kilograms lighter than the conventional 12.5 kilogram LPG cylinder, and the new product's price of 1,395 rupees stirred public anger, since the price difference between the two was just 100 rupees. With that being the case, the Cabinet has decided to price the new 18-litre cylinder at 1,150 rupees. Following the decision, an 18-litre LPG cylinder becomes 245 rupees cheaper than its previously marketed price of 1,395 rupees. In this backdrop, there are concerns in certain areas that there might be a gas shortage. However, Litrogas has issued a statement saying that it will not let a shortage manifest in the market. It added that though the Laughs Gas PLC, which accounts for 20% of the domestic LPG consumption, deciding to stop imports, Litrogas has the capacity to fill the void. Further, Litrogas provides replacements for cylinders of any colour, and the company has the necessary gas reserves. It urges the public not to harbour undue fears over a possible gas shortage, as the company has the market capability to procure the necessary excess stocks and the distribution network. In other local news, teachers' trade unions announced today that their trade union action of refraining from online education will continue after discussions with Minister of Education Professor G.L. Pires ended with no result.
The government teachers who refrain from providing online education for students until their demands are fulfilled by the government met Minister of Education Professor G.L. Pires this morning for a discussion at the Ministry of Education. However, the representatives of the teachers' union said that the talks with the minister were unsuccessful.
අපේ සාකච්ඡා අවසන් එකඟතාවයකින් තොරව තමයි නිම වුණේ. එතුමාගේ පැත්තෙන් ලබන සඳුදා අලුත් කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් යොමු කරන බවට ප්‍රකාශ කළා කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයට. ඒ නිසා මේ කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකා පිළිබඳව අපිට විශ්වාසයක් නැහැ.
දැවන්ත වෘත්තීය ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය තමයි ඔන්ලයින් තාක්ෂණය ඔස්සේ ඉගෙනුම් ඉගැන්වීම් ක්‍රියාවලියෙන් සහ ඊට සම්බන්ධ සියලු දේවල් වලින් ඉවත් වී සිටීම. එම ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය තවදුරටත් දියත් කරනවා.
Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the government has hit back at the Moodys Investors Service after the ratings agency placed Sri Lanka's rating under review for downgrade yesterday. The Ministry of Finance says that the Moodys actions could create unnecessary or uncertainty among investors and that it re-emphasises the need for the government to revisit its relationship with rating agencies. The government has responded to the decision made by the Moodys Investors Service to place Sri Lanka's Caa1 rating under review for downgrade, citing the risk of default due to falling foreign exchange reserves. Expressing its surprise, the Ministry of Finance said that the government has diligently lined up adequate funds to repay its maturing foreign debt liabilities, including the $1 billion international sovereign bond maturing at end of July. It added that the Moodys actions could create uncertainty among investors who have kept faith in Sri Lanka's ISBs and other investments. The Ministry of Finance added that this is not the first time that Moodys has taken such surprise action on the eve of an assured imminent payment. It says that Moodys downgraded Sri Lanka on the 28th of September in 2020, just a few days before a $1 billion ISB was to mature on the 4th of October in 2020, adding that the government successfully settled the liability without hesitation. Further, the Sri Lankan economy has shown strong signs of broad-based recovery with a real GDP growth of 4.3% in the first quarter of this year. What's more, the ministry notes that the unwarranted announcement by Moodys also emphasises the need for the government to revisit its relationship with rating agencies. Now, JAT Holdings Limited's initial public offering of 82,904,846 ordinary voting shares opened today at the Colombo Stock Exchange and was oversubscribed. The IPO offered for subscription 55,814,700 ordinary voting shares at 27 rupees per share. 27,090,146 ordinary voting shares at 27 rupees per share were offered for sale. Now, the issue received applications for over 2.2 billion rupees. Commenting on the developments, CEO of the CSE, Rajiva Bandaranaike, had remarked that 2021 has been a significant year for the CSE as the capital market has facilitated 69.65 billion rupees of capital raised so far. Sri Lankan shares, meanwhile, closed higher today, boosted by gains in heavyweight industrial and financial stocks as the CSE All-Share Price Index ended up 0.57 points, or percent I should say, at 8,068.33, while the S&P SL20 Index of more liquid stocks gained 11.57 points to close at 3,093.51. With that, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
Today also we saw the bullish trend in the market continuing for yet another day. So the ASPI spiked by 45 points and the index actually managed to close at 8,068 points. So overall, during the first half of the session, we saw a stagnant condition in the index. However, around the first hour, we saw activity starting to pick up and buying interest pushing the index upwards. So with that, we saw a gradual improvement in overall activity and buying interest, where the index was pushed past the 8,050 mark as well. So overall, we saw the bullish sentiment continuing from yesterday, starting off from the specific counters that had a lot of buying interest yesterday as well. Mainly the transportation sector was the highlight of the day today as well, as we saw significant turnover in that as well.
In the meantime, in the currency market, the rupee once again remained unchanged at 202.89 cents against the US dollar. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.